Hey YouTube, today I'm going to be doing a video tutorial on how to replace the post-catalytic converter oxygen sensor on a 2012 Toyota Venza equipped with the V6 engine. So before we actually do any work on the vehicle, I'm just going to hook up my OBD2 scan tool to just reconfirm the check engine code. And we can do this by taking our diagnostic connector of our tool and locating the OBD2 connector, which is just below the driver's side sort of knee bolster airbag. We're going to take our key and place it into the ignition and turn it to the run position. And depending on the scan tool you're using, it may auto link. And it shows me here that I've got a P0057, which is a oxygen sensor heater control circuit low, bank 2 sensor 2. So one of the things that I noticed on this vehicle is that when the check engine light comes on, that sometimes while driving it, you'll see that the check engine light and that all-wheel drive light, or even sometimes a traction light, will come on. And that's because Toyota's designed their systems where if a check engine light fault condition comes up, that it actually will potentially disable the traction control or the all-wheel drive. So it's just something to be aware of. And ultimately, you need to pinpoint the main cause of what's triggering the check engine light before looking further into things like traction control or all-wheel drive. So in the engine code, we saw that it was a fault code P0057, which is a bank 2 sensor 2. So one of the hints that you know whether it's pre-cat or post-cat sensor is the fact that it's sensor number 2, which is a post-cat sensor. And so how I know, at least on the Toyotas on a V6, what's bank 1 and bank 2 is that typically looking from the crankshaft pulley side, which is on the passenger side of the engine, that bank 1 is the left side and bank 2 is the right side of a V configured engine. So this configuration here would tell me that sensor 2 bank 2 is on the radiator side, right? So on the right side of this V6, and post-cat, which is way down there if you can see it. So up there is the sensor 1, and then sensor 2 is somewhere, sort of underneath the cat converter. So we're going to have to access that from the bottom of the vehicle. Now, in order for you to get to that pesky connector for this oxygen sensor, you're going to have to remove the passenger side splash guard. And that's actually held in with a couple of 10mm screws, like these ones, towards the front. And several pop clips that are located here, back here, as well as another one there. Now, you don't necessarily have to take them all off, as you can actually bend and deflect this splash guard down, but just give you a warning in advance that you may want to buy some replacement pop clips, because these have a tendency to break, especially when the vehicle is older, like this one. Now, if you look straight up, you can actually see this oxygen sensor in the manifold downpipe. And so what we need to do is we're going to spray a little bit of penetrating lubricant onto that joint, and we're also going to preemptively disconnect that wiring harness from that retaining clip and then unplug the wiring harness. We're going to come back to the top of the motor where the rad cap is and see the cat converter there on the right hand side. There's that little connector way down at the bottom. So what you're going to do is you're just going to press on that tab to release it from the bracket and disconnect it from the main engine harness. So once I popped off the connector from that little retaining clip on the bracket, I had some troubles getting this engine harness connector disconnected from the O2 sensor. So that's what the O2 sensor looks like once it's been covered with some penetrating oil. And now I'm going to take a 22mm wrench and just break that free. So this is the oxygen sensor and what it looks like once it's removed from the vehicle. So it actually didn't take too much effort to take off at all. I got a 22mm wrench and lots of penetrating lube. I just put it on here and I just gave it a good cranking. So this is my new O2 sensor. It's the same size. It's made by NGK. And before we do installation, we just want to double check to make sure that the connector ends are exactly the same. Installation is straightforward. It's just reverse order of removal. Depending on your O2 sensor, it may come from the factory with some anti-seize compound on the threads, or it may not. If it doesn't, just apply a thin coat to the threads of nickel-based anti-seize, or this NGK's case, it already comes with it. So I'm just going to screw this in and tighten it down to about 16 foot-pounds. So this is what the new O2 sensor looks like once it's installed. Now you may notice that the NGK sensor actually has a longer pigtail on it than the factory Denso one. And so what I did was I just simply routed the cables in such a way that it didn't make direct contact with, say, the oil pan or the crossmember frame, and more importantly is that that loop up there doesn't contact the extremely hot exhaust manifold. So underneath the car we can go ahead and reattach our splash guard screws and put in some replacement clips to hold everything back in place. So this is what everything looks like once it's been buttoned all back up properly. This is what the top view looks like with everything sort of clipped back in place. So you can sort of see way down there, there's that gray connector. It's all snapped back on properly and back in that retain clip. You can go ahead and reset the ECU by turning the car to run and then letting our OBD scan tool link up and then just go erase. It goes, are you sure? Yes. So once we've reset our engine code, start the car. You can see here that the check engine light is no more. So as you can see from my video, replacing the Bank 2 Sensor 2 O2 sensor on your 2012 Venza V6 isn't overly difficult nor time consuming, and I think I probably spent more time trying to undo that wiring harness clip than I did actually replacing the sensor. I hope you found this video useful and informative. If you like it, consider subscribing and give me a thumbs up. Thanks for watching.